Bringing back the mammoth is not a science project. It is a company worth more than most NFL teams. It has raised $853 million from 79 investors, including the CIA. It has zero revenue from de-extinction, and it filed a patent on gene-edited elephants the same month it announced the mammoth program to the world. The science is real, the conservation mission is real, and the business model running underneath both of them is something none of the announcements mentioned. Follow the money. Part 1. The valuation that should not exist. In January 2025, Colossal Biosciences raised $200 million in a Series C funding round. The round valued the company at $10.2 billion. Texas's first decacorn, a startup worth more than $10 billion. Here's the thing about that number. Colossal at the time of that valuation had produced zero revenue from de-extinction. No mammoth, no thylacine, no dodo. 3 months later, they announced the direwolf pups, and the scientific community immediately disputed whether those animals counted as de-extinction at all. A $10.2 billion valuation for a company with no product revenue and a disputed proof of concept requires a specific kind of investor logic. Not faith in the animals, faith in the platform. The platform is what Colossal is actually building. The mammoths and the direwolves and the thylacines are the demonstrations. They are the headlines that prove the technology works and generate the cultural momentum that keeps the funding rounds oversubscribed. But the technology itself, ancient DNA extraction, multiplex genome editing, non-invasive cloning from blood samples, artificial reproductive protocols for large mammals. That technology has applications that have nothing to do with extinct animals. FormBio, Colossal's first spin-out, is a computational biology platform. It raised more than $30 million in an oversubscribed first round and is now generating 7 figures in annual recurring revenue. Breaking, the second spin-out uses engineered microbes to break down plastic waste. It raised $10.5 million in seed funding. Colossal has announced plans for 3 more spin-out businesses. One of them is exploring artificial womb technology with applications in human fertility treatment. The mammoth is the story, the platform is the product, and the investors knew which one they were buying. Part 2. Who the investors are. 79 investors. The list includes names that tell you something about what kind of company Colossal actually is. Jim Breyer, one of the earliest and most successful Facebook investors, not typically associated with conservation biology. Tim Draper, a venture capitalist whose portfolio reads as a map of transformative technology bets. TWG Global, the investment company of Guggenheim Partners co-founder Mark Walter and billionaire Thomas Tull, led the January 2025 Series C round. And then there is In-Q-Tel. In-Q-Tel is the venture capital arm of the Central Intelligence Agency. It invests in technology companies whose work is considered relevant to national intelligence interests. Its portfolio includes companies working on satellite imagery, data analytics, cybersecurity, and biotechnology. It has invested in Colossal Biosciences. The specific interest of an intelligence agency in a de-extinction company has not been publicly explained by either party. In-Q-Tel investments are typically strategic rather than financial. They are made because the technology being developed has applications that the agency considers relevant to its mission. What those applications are, in Colossal's case, is not stated anywhere in any public document. Ancient DNA extraction technology that can recover usable genetic material from specimens tens of thousands of years old has obvious non-conservation applications. The ability to clone large mammals from non-invasive blood samples has obvious non-conservation applications. The multiplex genome editing platform that Colossal has built and is refining across 6 de-extinction programs has obvious non-conservation applications. None of this means anything sinister is happening. In-Q-Tel invests in many companies whose primary purpose is entirely civilian. The investment does not imply a hidden program. It implies that the technology being developed has dual-use potential that an intelligence agency considers worth monitoring from the inside, which is worth knowing when evaluating what kind of company Colossal actually is. Part 3. The patent. In April 2025, the same month Colossal announced the direwolf pups and called it the first de-extinction in history. The company filed a patent application seeking exclusive rights to create and sell gene-edited elephants containing woolly mammoth DNA. The patent is not a minor administrative detail. It is the document that defines who owns the animals if the program works. If Colossal successfully produces mammoth variant elephants, the animals those embryos produce are intellectual property. Not just the first calves. Any animal produced anywhere in the world using this specific technology and these specific genetic modifications. The patent, if granted in its filed form, gives Colossal a commercial monopoly over the living results of the most discussed climate intervention in the de-extinction field. Ben Lamb has described 3 revenue streams for the company: technology licensing, charging governments and research institutions for access to Colossal's genetic tools and protocols; government collaboration revenue, where countries pay for help preserving their own endangered species; and biodiversity credits. Biodiversity credits are the one that requires the most attention. They are a market-based mechanism, explicitly modeled on carbon credits, where companies and governments pay for verified contributions to biodiversity conservation. If Colossal successfully reintroduces any species into a functional ecosystem, it can sell credits representing that ecological contribution to companies looking to offset their biodiversity impact. Lamb has said this revenue stream alone could generate billions in annual recurring revenue. The logic works like this. A corporation with a poor environmental record pays Colossal for biodiversity credits generated by reintroducing mammoths to the Siberian tundra. The corporation uses those credits to claim it has offset its biodiversity impact. The mammoths are simultaneously a climate intervention, a conservation achievement, a patented commercial product, and the underlying asset of a credit market that does not yet exist, but that Colossal is positioning itself to dominate. Whether that is a visionary business model or a concern depends entirely on whether you believe the ecological outcomes are real and whether you trust the credit verification system. Carbon credits have a documented history of being gamed. Biodiversity credits are newer and less regulated. The animals generating the credits are owned by the company selling them. Part 4. The IPO and what it requires. Pre-IPO shares in Colossal are currently being sold through multiple platforms, including EquityZen and TSG Invest, which means the company is on a pathway to public markets. An IPO is the standard exit mechanism for the kind of venture capital investment Colossal has taken on. 79 investors, who collectively put in $853 million, need a liquidity event. An IPO requires a story that public market investors will buy. The story Colossal has is extraordinary. De-extinction, climate intervention, the mammoth, the thylacine, the direwolf, living proof that the technology works. A $10.2 billion valuation established by sophisticated institutional investors. A pipeline of spin-out companies generating real revenue. And a Hollywood filmmaker on the content team building the narrative infrastructure for the moment the company goes public. Here is what an IPO does to the animals. It makes them assets on a balance sheet. Assets that generate revenue through licensing and credits and content deals. Assets whose value is tied to their continued existence and public visibility. Assets that the company has legal and fiduciary obligations to its shareholders to manage in ways that maximize shareholder value. That is not necessarily bad for the animals. A mammoth that is valuable to shareholders is a mammoth that the company is highly motivated to keep alive and healthy and visible. But it creates a specific incentive structure around the ecological and scientific decisions the company makes. When the choice is between a slower, more ecologically careful reintroduction timeline and a faster timeline that generates earlier revenue from biodiversity credits, the shareholder obligation points in one direction. The scientists making the decisions are employed by a company whose board has a fiduciary duty to investors. That is a structural reality that has nothing to do with whether the individual scientists are acting in good faith. It is the context inside which those scientists are working. Here is the honest version of what Colossal is. It is a biotechnology company with a genuine conservation mission, real scientific achievements, and a business model designed to generate returns for 79 investors through technology licensing, biodiversity credits, spin-out companies, and eventually an IPO. Those things are not contradictions. They are simultaneously true. A company can want to save the world and need to make money doing it. Many of the most impactful environmental organizations in history have operated on exactly that logic. The question is not whether the profit motive disqualifies the mission. It does not. The question is whether the profit motive shapes the decisions in ways that are not visible in the press releases. Whether the biodiversity credit market creates the right incentives for genuinely careful ecological reintroduction. Whether the patent on gene-edited elephants serves the climate intervention or primarily serves the balance sheet. Whether the IPO timeline aligns with the ecological timelines the science requires. The Mammoth program could be the most consequential climate intervention of the century. It could also be the asset underlying a biodiversity credit market that allows corporations to pay for the right to keep doing what they are doing. It is currently both of those things at the same time, and the distinction between them will be determined not in a press release, but in the specific decisions that get made when the investor timeline and the ecological timeline run at different speeds. Lamb says every project is on schedule or ahead of schedule. Investors say the valuation is justified. Scientists say the technology is real. Conservation organizations say the governance frameworks do not exist. All four of those things are true right now. The Mammoth is coming by 2028, and whoever owns it when it arrives owns something the world has not had to think about before. If understanding what each of the 6 programs actually risks when the money meets the ecology is what keeps you watching, our last video ranked them all. Watch Colossal's next 6 de-extinctions, ranked by how badly they could go wrong next. The blue buck is the safest. The Mammoth is number 1. And the governance gap that sits underneath every program on the list is the same one this video just followed to its source.